Have you ever wondered why you were born into this family? Why this pain, Lord? Why so many struggles? Growing up in a toxic home can feel like living in a suffocating, endless environment where those who were supposed to care for and protect you end up causing wounds and confusion. It's exhausting and heartbreaking. For many, it feels like an impossible burden to bear. But let me encourage you today. Your story is far more extraordinary than you can imagine. Being in a toxic family is neither a punishment nor a coincidence. It does not mean God has abandoned you, but it is part of a deep and divine plan, a perfect project that only He can transform into something beautiful. Toxic homes may feel like destructive flames, but in God's hands, that fire becomes a furnace that strengthens and refines. In Isaiah 41, it is written, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, help you, and uphold you with my righteous hand." Even when life feels unbearable, even when the chaos of your childhood tries to rob your hope, God remains firm. He not only leads you through the fire, but also transforms you while you go through it. C.S. Lewis, in The Problem of Pain, wrote brilliantly, "Pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world." The toxic family environment you endured may feel like a battlefield, but it is also the place where God begins to reveal His plans for your life. Think about Joseph's story. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold as a slave, and imprisoned for something he didn't do. His family was not just toxic, they completely rejected him. Yet, even in the darkest moments, Joseph trusted God. When he reunited with his brothers, he said in Genesis 50, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." The same God who acted in Joseph's life is also working in yours. He takes the broken pieces and turns them into something wonderful. In Isaiah 48, it is written, "See, I have refined you, though not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction." Growing up in a toxic family can feel like going through that furnace, painful, intense, and relentless. But what does a furnace do? It burns away impurities, leaving something stronger, purer, and more valuable. This refining process is not just about enduring, but about being transformed. C.S. Lewis describes in Mere Christianity, "Imagine yourself as a living house. God comes in to rebuild it. At first, perhaps you can understand what He is doing, but suddenly, He starts knocking it about in ways that hurt deeply and don't seem to make sense. What on earth is He doing? The explanation is that He is building quite a different house from the one you had in mind. He intends to dwell in it Himself. In Jeremiah 29, God says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Every pain you have endured was not in vain. God is using all of it in His divine plan, shaping you to overcome dysfunction and break generational cycles. Breaking these cycles is not easy. It requires courage, self-awareness, and unshakable faith. In Philippians 4 we read, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." God does not call you to this mission without equipping you with the strength to fulfill it. Think about Moses. He was born during oppression and raised in Pharaoh's palace. He carried the weight of his people's suffering. God didn't randomly choose Moses to lead Israel out of Egypt. He prepared him through his unique life story. Similarly, your experience in a toxic family has given you a unique insight into dysfunctional patterns that need to be transformed. This experience is not a curse. It is a training ground. As C.S. Lewis said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." Maybe you didn't choose the family you were born into, but you can decide to rewrite your story. Choosing forgiveness over resentment, love over anger, and faith over despair creates a legacy not just for you but for future generations. Jesus' lineage includes people marked by mistakes, murderers, adulterers, and outcasts. Yet God redeemed it all to bring the Savior into the world. If He did that, imagine what He can do through your story. So, hold your head high. The furnace may have been painful, but you are coming out as gold. God's plans for you are good, and His purpose will always prevail. Stand firm, knowing you were chosen, refined, and destined for greatness. You were not just born into a family, you were called to transform it. And by doing so, you will leave a legacy of hope, healing, and freedom. As you move forward, remember, the pain you endured is the foundation of your purpose. Trust that God, in His infinite wisdom, placed you exactly where you needed to be. Do not despise difficult beginnings. Embrace them as part of the process that shapes you to be a vessel for God's glory.